We are Southeastern 16. That's Chris Lee. I'm Chase Robinson. As we are going to update our college football playoff projections after another week, another crazy weekend of college football, as it seems to be every week. We were talking about before we came on, Chris. I mean, this changes every week when it comes to trying to project who's going to be in the college football playoff with just the madness that we've seen so far in this college football season.
Have you ever had the feeling of defeat before you did something? Because that's what I'm getting distinctly as I'm doing this. Like I've got 20-something teams on my board, which I'm trying to slot into 12 spots, and it's crazy. But I think this is what makes it so much fun. I think we are entering a world, as I've said, of college football where there's never been more fun and parity. And boy, if you don't believe me, try to put together a 12-team projection with any confidence. And I mean, I think I feel pretty good about maybe 4 or 5 of these teams being there, and then everybody else, I got
Right.
questions.
Yeah, and what's curious to me, Chris, is we saw different things from the committee every year in the 14 playoff,
Yeah.
kind of what criteria they put into place, whether it was strength of schedule or, eye test, whatever it was. I feel like we saw something different every time. So it's hard to even know what the committee what they're going to look at when it comes to putting these 12 teams together. Because in all the years that we had the 14 playoff, we never really figured out exactly what the committee was doing, and I feel like it's escalated here with the 12-team playoff. We have no idea what they're looking for and what they're looking at when they're going to put these 12 teams in.
Yeah, the question I continually have is, do we see a basketball-like approach where they're putting less emphasis on the wins and losses and more on the quality team? In other words, could you get a 3-loss SEC team in that's top 5 in the computers or something like that? I think we just don't know, which adds to the difficulty of what we're trying to do.
It does. So we're going to dive into this right after we tell you about Bet Online. They are the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. They've got every stat, every matchup breakdown, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. They have the largest catalog of odds from everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA to political props. When the game's over, you can go to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. So head over to their website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. And boy, I don't know if you would want to wager on who's going to be in the college football playoff because it is all unknown. But we will unveil our projections here. I'll start with mine here, Chris. Here is my projected college football playoff. Texas Longhorns in that number 1 spot. Look, I was impressed with what I saw from Oregon on Saturday in their win over Ohio State. It may be tough to do again, but I got them there at number 2, Miami 3, Iowa State 4. So those are my 4 conference champs that I've got in there. I put Ohio State in at number 5. I think they're, again, watching that Oregon-Ohio State game, really impressed with both of those teams. And just the way everybody else is beating each other, I feel like Ohio State could get that 5 spot. This may not be popular, but I put Alabama at number 6 because of that head-to-head win over Georgia. I think if Alabama wins out, they could find themselves there. Penn State 7. I got the Georgia Bulldogs at 8. Clemson 9. I got Notre Dame 10. The Texas A&M Aggies representing the SEC at 11, and Boise State number 12.
Yeah, we have some similarities with teams, and I think our seeding is different. We don't have all the same teams in. I think Ohio State getting beat by Oregon threw us all for a loop. Ohio State was the top team in the predictive computers coming in. That was a road trip to Oregon, and they lost by points. So not anything devastating there. But Ohio State's got a road trip to Penn State. They've also got to play Indiana, the rivalry game with Michigan. So that no longer looking like is sure of a thing. And, man, for our part of the country, God help you when you try to figure out the SEC.
Yeah.
I feel like, spoiler alert, I feel like Texas is going to be there, and I feel pretty good about that. I mean, everybody else, I start to write them down. And yes, I did have multiple SEC teams in there. I'm like, yeah, I think I'll put them here, but I don't know because I got to play this other team that I got in the playoff mix. And that is, that's going to be life ahead in the SEC. And Chase, God help you, just trying to figure out what's going to happen in the SEC, much less the teams we don't cover all the time. I mean, we know the SEC very well, and I have no confidence of what's coming next. I had this sheet where I'm like, well, I think the winner of this game gets in between these two teams. A loser goes home, but I'm not sure who that's going to be. But I think, again, this points to the things that make it fun, the mystery, that the games ahead are really, really, really going to matter.
They are. They're going to matter a lot. And again, we don't know what they're going to do with 2 and 3 lost teams. Like, and Chris, you can, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a 3-loss ACC team, or even to an extent a 2-loss ACC team and a 3-loss SEC team, like, there's a difference there. Like, I think a 3-loss SEC team might even be better than a 2-loss ACC team. Like, and they're going to have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, now I think that's probably going to apply if their names are either Alabama or Georgia. But other than that, yeah, I think that you could see that. And at the ACC, I think your hope for a 3-loss team might be Louisville, depending on what it does, but that feels like a reach.
Yeah. All right, Chris, let's take a look at your playoff projections here.
Well, a lot of the same teams. Where we differed, I slid Tennessee in this week ahead of Notre Dame, and I think I may have some buyer's remorse on that one. Now, I do wonder if Notre Dame loses another game, right? And that could happen. They've got both the service academies ahead, and I think they've also got Southern Cal. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for Notre Dame to lose another one. But I've got some alarm bells going off that says maybe I got that wrong. That aside, I've got Texas as my one, as did you. I've still got Clemson beating Miami in the ACC title game. Now, I slotted Miami at 5 because I think that's going to be Miami's only loss, and I think a 1-loss team would be pretty high at that point. So I've got them there. I got Penn State Ohio State matchup would be kind of interesting in an opening round game. Georgia A&M. I mean, I didn't plan these out in terms of let's match up SEC against SEC. I just picked them and put them where they are. Big games ahead for A&M, but I think the schedule's favorable. And again, I'm a little nervous about leaving Notre Dame out because it did win at A&M, albeit week 1. But Notre Dame's loss was in Northern Illinois. So how much does a bad loss count against you? Because I don't think a lot of these playoff teams are going to have a loss in that stratosphere. And then we've got, Tennessee going on the road for a playoff game. But, I mean, the team that I had a hard time with, and I'll tell you a couple more of these, LSU. I feel like the winner of LSU, Alabama, you flip that outcome. That's at LSU. I could have LSU where I had Alabama in this one. I mean, it's just as hard to know what to do with some of these teams.
It really is. So you had Alabama 6 like I did, and I thought I was going out on a limb by doing that. But do you feel like that head-to-head with Georgia would put them ahead of the Bulldogs when it's all said and done?
Yeah, no. The problem is I think they're losing to Tennessee Saturday, which is why I flipped them. And then, so you've got some inconsistency saying, well, you've got Tennessee beating Alabama, but lower in the rankings. But I've got Tennessee picking up another loss later at some point. I think that's part of the calculus. But again, you get one little thing wrong or two little things wrong, you can get a lot wrong. I offer these with no confidence. They did come with a lot of thought, though.
Yeah.
And again, I just point back to anybody that thought that the regular season was going to be meaningless, given the expanded playoff format, just is not paying attention.
They're not. They really aren't. I mean, this is, this took some time, effort, and like you said, you had 20-something teams on the board to choose from. Yeah, it was. I was sitting there earlier trying to figure this out, and there's so many teams. I feel like I could have put in BYU being one of those teams. That I thought, well, they need a spot, couldn't fit them in. And hey, I don't think necessarily a team like Ole Miss is completely out of it, even with that loss. Like, they could, beat Georgia. Yeah. They could find their way back into it. You mentioned LSU is a team that could easily find their way into it. So I feel like even at this, halfway, a little over halfway now through the season, like, it's still ever changing. You have the teams who, unless something drastic happens, there's going to be some of these teams are going to be in there, but there's other
Yeah.
teams. I mean, they can look totally different, like we said, come next week even.
Yeah, and I want to tell you some places where I have confusion, some other teams that should be talked about in this video, but because again, I mean, I think there may be the chances are there may be multiple teams that we didn't even talk about so far that are going to make this thing. That's how crazy this is. But if you want some clarity, let me help you with one thing. If you're trying to explain football to your kids, I don't even mean the playoffs. I just mean football. I'm lucky I've got a 10-year-old who knows it and watches games with me. If you want the treat of your kids watching playoff games with you, I've got the people for you. It is our friends at Future Fans. You can see the kit behind me for $50, and actually you can get 10% off that with the promo code SEC. You can buy a kit that will explain football to your kids. It's got games, it's got books, it's got interactive things. I've talked to multiple people who told me about their experiences with their kids opening this game. I'm going to unpack some more features of this in the coming weeks, but if you're getting ready for Christmas, birthdays, whatever, go to futurefans.com, put in the promo code SEC, get 10% off of your order, and give yourself the gift of watching football with your kids, your grandkids, whoever. You will love this. I promise you will not regret it. Help out those who help the show. Visit our buddies at Future Fans today. Okay, Chase, I want to ask you, how many teams did you have under consideration that we didn't even talk about?
I mean, there's probably, looking at my sheet of paper here, I mean, I probably had 15, 16 teams written down, and that was the just the first ones that came to my mind. I know there's more, but yeah, this was difficult because again, you look at some of these teams who may be undefeated, who maybe up at the top of their conference. I just feel like there's so many teams under consideration for this. I would hate to be on the committee this year. That's for sure.
Well, and I'll give you an example. Pitt's unbeaten, and Pitt was not really a team I considered for this. But this is a year where you just seeing craziness week to week. There's like a big surprise, or usually 2 or 3 every week. And so I'm trying not to count anybody out. I mean, my full list would probably have 24 teams on it for 12 spots. And again, I think the last, really once I got down to, I had Miami at 5. After that, it's like, well, I'll have Georgia and Alabama in here, but I could see each of them taking 2 losses and not getting in, to maybe an 11-1 Indiana or something like that, or a 12-1 Indiana. In fact, Indiana, I don't know who's going to be favored to lose a game the rest of the regular season and is unbeaten already. And that's a team that computers really like and think is a legit playoff contender. I mean, you've got the service academies. We're kind of giving Boise State that 12 spot, but one of them beats Notre Dame. I think at that point, if they stay unbeaten, they may be. Hey, what if you see one of the service academies beat Notre Dame and get in, and also Boise State get in? I mean, we're just kind of assuming that only one group of 5 team gets in. Other team, SMU we haven't talked about. They've got 1 loss, looks like a good team. You could have LSU on the outside looking in based on, I think Alabama's going to beat them, but I don't have any confidence in that. I mean, it is really a year where I feel like your list needs to get over 20 if you're having a serious discussion about this at this point in time.
It really does, and you bring up a good point. I think Army is definitely a team that can get in, and get that 12 spot. Boise State get in there too. Like, I think that's a possibility. The possibilities are endless. That's it. That's the crazy thing about this year. And we'll do this every week and update our projections for the college football playoff. But again, it'll change every week, most likely. As well. But we got you covered here on Southeastern 16, getting you ready for that 12-team college football playoff and the weekend's games. We got prediction videos for all the games involving SEC teams out right now. Check those out. We got some great interviews getting you ready for games this weekend. So subscribe to our channel. Catch a reaction of we'll put out Saturday night. We'll go live reacting to the games. Best way to get that, again, subscribe to our channel. Like this video. Share it with your friends Spread the word about Southeastern 16 as we get you covered on all things SEC football, basketball, and baseball. And we are brought to you by Bet Online.